Returning to work while breastfeeding can feel overwhelming. You're juggling schedules, milk supply, and the logistics of pumping, all while trying to keep your baby well fed and thriving, and managing your career goals and responsibilities. But here's the truth. Having a solid, intentional plan makes all the difference. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact steps to create a successful breastfeeding plan as a working mother. By the end, you'll have a clear strategy to protect your milk supply, pump efficiently, and confidently navigate your return to work without feeling like breastfeeding is taking over your life. We've helped hundreds of moms navigate this transition successfully by leveraging a breast pump to protect their milk supply and return to work while continuing to feed their babies on their own terms. We actually have a great freebie down below to help guide you through these steps, so make sure you grab that. It has even more resources than these 5 steps I'm going to share with you, but let's dive into that right now. Okay, step 1 is a solid start to breastfeeding. All right, if feeding at the breast is important to you, I recommend focusing here first. A strong breastfeeding foundation is everything. And if you can establish a good milk production, latch, and some feeding patterns early on, using a pump and maintaining your supply later becomes so much easier. So if breastfeeding is part of your goals, here's what to focus on during your maternity leave to set yourself up for success. Prioritize breastfeeding, all right? Frequent nursing in the early weeks helps establish a good supply. Learn your baby's feeding cues so you can respond to their needs and build trust in that process. Introduce the pump strategically. All right, around 3, 4, 5 weeks postpartum is a good time to start pumping if you want to. Some moms like to wait a little bit longer than that, but you don't necessarily have to start as early as possible. And in fact, it can cause problems with the breastfeeding relationship if you introduce a pump too early, especially while you're trying to focus on mastering breastfeeding. Now, if things are not going well at the breast, you may need to introduce a pump a little bit earlier to help protect and establish that milk supply. But in general, if you have an IBCLC that you're working with that's helping you latch your baby and establishing that supply, making sure everything's going good in the beginning, a lot of times it's best to just leave the pump alone until you get that breastfeeding relationship really well established. If you have a super short maternity leave, we actually do have another video on that topic, which I'll put in the description for you because you will probably need to introduce the pump a little bit earlier, build up a really small freezer stash, and jump back into work. If that's your reality, that video will help walk you through that. And then once breastfeeding is established and going, bottle introduction is going to be part of your experience too. And we find that earlier bottle introduction, not too early, but around 3 to 5 weeks tends to be a really nice time to introduce a bottle, especially if you know that this is going to be part of your feeding experience long term. We highly recommend paced feeding, where you're doing a more reactionary style of feeding for both you and any other caregivers that are bottle feeding to help make the flow as similar to milk at the breast as possible. That will really, really help you avoid that bottle preference. Nipple confusion, sometimes they talk about it, but I feel like it's more of a flow preference between the two. Now, to be really clear, a solid start to breastfeeding doesn't mean that it has to be perfect, all right? It just means that you are working on building that strong foundation of feeding at the breast so that when you introduce a breast pump and we switch from having a supply that's managed by a baby to a supply that's also managed by a pump, it will make that transition so much easier. I think I may have already said this, but I always recommend working with an IBCLC just to make sure that things are going right and that everything looks good. It's so much easier to catch and fix little problems than to deal with big problems later down the road. And we definitely can use a breast pump to make up some ground and fix problems, but it's harder, right? Just get some help from an IBCLC in the beginning to help you breastfeed if that's what you're trying to do. Okay, step 2 in this process is learn to pump fast and efficiently. If you're a working mom, pumping will likely be a big part of your breastfeeding journey. And this is actually my specialty. This is what I like to do and what I help clients to do. Pumping is an art. All right. And it's a completely different skill set than feeding at the breast. I kind of thought that pumping would be the easy part when I went back to work after my first baby. We had worked really, really hard to get breastfeeding going. I had to call experts too. We had to walk through all the same stuff that you have to do, even as a trained professional. It was not easy, right? And so I'm like, I have a pump, I have a schedule, I have my own office. Once I just get breastfeeding figured out, I'll just go pump at work and it'll be fine. But it was super not fine. And I've realized since I've been in this space the last 10 years that this is the story of a lot of moms, right? Pumping is a completely different skill set than feeding at the breast. And sometimes earlier in your postpartum experience, you can get away with poor pumping practices and it works okay. But if you build a pumping plan on a cracked foundation, it will crumble. So to be efficient and avoid supply struggles, you need to master these 5 key areas of pumping, all right? There are more videos on each of these areas down in the description, okay? And this is a big part of our coaching program curriculum as well. But I want to cover these 5 things so you kind of know where to start and how to kind of build a plan and make sure that we're maximizing each of these different areas, okay? The first one is a milk expression schedule, all right? Consistency is key to maintaining supply. Nothing can replace frequent milk removal, all right? It has to, don't get any breaks. I'm really sorry, but you've got to be removing milk on a schedule that works for you, both logistically and sustainability-wise. The second one here is to find an appropriate flange size. The wrong fit can hurt and reduce milk output. This is a really big piece. Again, it's a hot topic in the world right now of pumping, and I'm glad flange sizing is a very important piece. It will make a lot of things easier and make it more comfortable for you. Third is to maximize your letdowns. And this looks a lot different on a breast pump than it does on a baby. You don't really have to think about it with a baby. They're triggering multiple letdowns while they're feeding and you don't have to do anything. Biology has taught them how to take care of that. On a pump, it is way more intentional. And a strong letdown reflex makes pumping faster and more effective. It also ensures that you're not leaving milk behind. Ideally, we're shooting for 3 letdowns every pumping session, but a lot of times you have to trigger that yourself. So really knowing what works best for you and how to get those letdowns in every session will be key. Number 4, optimize your pumping settings and techniques. All right, not all pumps work the same way for everybody. And that I know is a frustrating thing, but trying to figure out what settings work best for you. And if you have multiple pumps, which pumps work better, which settings on which pumps work better, all of those things. And then finding techniques to complement a pumping session and figuring out which ones are most effective for me, which ones don't really matter. Are they sustainable? And if they're not, how do I adjust them and make them fit into my plan, into my work life more sustainably? That will be an important piece too. And then number 5, this is the one that most people skip the most often, and this is addressing mental barriers, all right? Stress and mindset directly impact milk flow, all right? So there are things that are not all physical about pumping and getting the milk out that you need. There are a lot of mental and emotional aspects as well, and this is one that people skip a lot, but it's really important. Okay, so a random plan is going to equal random results, all right? An intentional plan is how you get control of this experience. So if you can identify what makes the biggest difference for you in pumping efficiently and effectively, so getting all the milk out as quickly as you can, I'm not saying you can do it in 5 minutes, but like we don't want to be spending 45 minutes on pumping sessions, right? This is literally how you start working smarter, not harder, okay? This step 2, pumping fast and efficiently, is crucial because your milk supply should serve you. It should not control you. All right. So when you master pumping efficiently, you can make proactive choices rather than constantly being in reactionary mode, trying to fix and band-aid and, do things as they come at you. I want you to be in the driver's seat. And those 5 areas of this step, like a lot of numbers in this video, that's how you get there. Step 3 in creating your breastfeeding plan is to create a predictable milk supply. And when we're talking to mothers on our discovery call that we do, kind of as an introduction into our coaching program, this step is probably the one that often surprises them the most. Having the right amount of milk is a big focus for mothers, but they're often surprised when we tell them that a main goal of ours is to help them have a milk supply that's predictable. The biggest question I get here is that even possible? The answer is yes. Yes, you can understand your milk supply and have some predictability there. Actually, when Alexis joined our program, she had overcome already many challenges. She had a baby in the NICU. She had supply struggles. She was navigating a new job while still breastfeeding. And by the time she was headed back to work, things were not going great. She was doing 30 to 45-minute pumping sessions, and she still wasn't getting enough milk for her baby out, and really felt out of control in this whole experience. Once she really stopped and went backwards up to step 2, right? Focused on optimizing flange size, pumping schedule, efficiency, letdowns, everything changed. She was able to actually pump more milk in less time and even drop to just 2 pumping sessions at work while maintaining her supply. In this step, it's all about knowing what you are capable of. knowing how much to expect at certain times of day, having that predictability. You can't really get here to this step though if you haven't already kind of gone through the process, okay? If we're not pumping correctly, if those things are not optimized, it becomes really hard to create a predictable milk supply. And one, because sometimes the output is unpredictable because the pumping stuff is not quite right. Do you see how these all build upon each other? Also establishing that step one of getting that breastfeeding relationship working well in the beginning, it all builds upon each other, as you can see. So this leads us into step 4, which is creating a realistic back to work plan. And I feel like this is the step that people kind of jump to. They get breastfeeding going and then they jump straight to step 4 and be like, let me create a back to work plan. Honestly, that's exactly what I did when I went back to work for my first time. I'm like, got breastfeeding. Now I'm gonna come up with my back to work plan. And it's so much more than a pumping schedule. I feel like this is what I hear so often is, I already have a pumping schedule. I'm good to go. And it's like, that is a place to start, but it's such a small piece of this puzzle. And let me tell you more. We work with moms in every profession: doctors, nurses, office workers, remote workers, lawyers, therapists, engineers, and some with even more unpredictable schedules. We have a lot of clients in some crazy jobs, okay? No matter what your job looks like, building flexibility into your plan is key. All right, so here's what you need to know and create as part of your back to work plan in this step. Number 1, you should start with a pumping schedule, okay? When are you going to pump and where are you going to pump? Because without some kind of plan here, pumping is not just going to magically pop into your day at convenient times. We really gotta have a plan when and where, all right? You also need to know your minimums and maximums, all right? Which means how much milk do you need and how long can you safely go between sessions? This is where understanding your own body and creating that predictable supply is key, because stuff is going to come up, all right? Which is the next point here is you need to have a plan to adapt in real time, all right? If a meeting runs long or you have a client walk in at the last second and you need to take it, if you forget a pumping part and now we don't have the right things to do, can you push your pumping session by 45 minutes or will that negatively hurt your milk supply? What will you do if this happens? How will you adjust it afterward? All right. Plan for the plan to fail and then know how to adjust, because it is not going to be perfect. Okay. And when you understand all of these things, where breastfeeding is solid when you're with your baby, you're pumping efficiently, you have a predictable milk supply, you understand your body and what it's likely to do at what times of day and where you can go, and then you have this back to work plan that has flexibility built in, this is where you start to be in control of this experience. Do you see how all of this kind of comes together? So if you need to adjust your schedule at this point, you know exactly how to do that, and you can recover without stress, and you're not guessing and trying random things and worrying about things, and sometimes worrying about things that don't even need to be worried about. And like, I've been a working mom too. I'm there. I get it. This is hard, but mastering all of these steps up until this point, this is what real confidence and control looks like. And step 5 is to find your tribe. Does that rhyme? I don't know. Breastfeeding is a long game. All right. It gets exhausting and you don't get to take a day off, and that sucks. It is so hard. At 5, 6, 9 months in, it is really easy to feel burnout. All right. Sometimes the only thing that keeps you going at those points is having the right support. So what should your support system look like? And before you're like, oh, step 5, whatever, like I really want to figure out pumping and like get my right pump of my schedule, like this is important too. And I feel like the more I work with clients and the more I work with moms, this is the part that they come in being like, that sounds great, I'll take that too, but really what I need is like the pumping stuff and the milk supply nonsense. Almost always at the end, they tell me, I didn't realize how important a community and support was to this experience. So learn from more experienced moms. Don't overlook this step or count it as fluffy or nice extra to have. This is how you enjoy this experience. This is how you go from just like doing the thing and pushing through and like hitting your goal and looking back and saying that was the worst, I don't want to do that again, versus I felt in control that whole time. I actually enjoyed it. I got to thrive in all areas of my life. It's because you mastered the first 4 steps and then didn't ignore this 5th one. Okay. Your support network should look like other breastfeeding moms who understand what you're doing. Ideally, this is a group that is also doing what you're doing. All right. I hear this a lot from working moms. They'll say, most of my other mom friends are stay-at-home moms, or they've never pumped, like they're breastfeeding totally fine, or they're exclusively pumping, but they're home with their baby. Like, they don't really get the struggles that come with being a working mother in this situation. And you'd be surprised how much that matters. Or your mother, but they never went back to work, or they didn't breastfeed, you know, like, they're there, but you really need other people who are doing what you're doing, who get it. A lactation consultant or a coach can also be a huge asset for you. If you've got, a quick question, especially about breastfeeding or, just some little things like that, especially in the beginning, lactation consultants can be really valuable assets there. They are trained at feeding in the breast. They are experts in that area, and that can make or break, especially the experience in the beginning. If you're looking for more long-term support and someone to help you more holistically in this transition, that's kind of what we do, especially in this little niche of pumping working moms, okay? We're here to help you not only with the logistics of pumping and milk supply and all of that stuff, but also navigating all of this and keeping that accountability and motivation high. It's an important piece of making this work long term. You also should have, hopefully, a partner, or doesn't even have to be a spouse or anything, but someone who's intimately involved in your life that can help you. If you're on your own, if it's just you and a baby, that is hard. What kind of family do you have? What kind of close friends? Who is in your immediate support network? Those will be huge. Delegate everything that you can, washing bottle parts, any meal prep, any household chores, because your life is so consumed by work, baby, milk, all of these things. So having that tight-knit, intimate group is really important. And then also looping in your employer. And of course, know your rights and advocate for your pumping needs. But even more than that, even if they're super supportive, which I really hope they are, communication and boundaries are key to helping things go smoothly. And you're probably going to have to keep communicating and keep setting boundaries throughout this whole process. Okay? Finding your tribe means that you don't have to do this alone. You have people cheering you on and helping you stay the course. This is not easy to be a breastfeeding working mom, all right? You can do it, but these 5 steps are really important. Actually, one of my favorite quotes from Brené Brown, I actually think it's on my website, on my About Me page, because I love it so much, is, you don't have to do this alone. You were never meant to. And that is huge. We don't have the same support networks that we used to have. It used to be a woman was having a baby and she had mothers and aunts and sisters and grandmothers and other females in the community that helped her have the baby, helped her learn to feed the baby. If she couldn't feed it, they'd feed her baby, wet nurse style. You were just surrounded by this community of women. We don't have that anymore. You are absolutely isolated. So finding that place to be is a really important step in this plan. There is a really great freebie down in the description. Like I mentioned, I hope you download that. There's more resources, and that will help guide you in creating a successful plan as a breastfeeding working mom. All right. It's going to include some pumping. So if you want some help from our coaching team in that, there's information down in the description to apply for that as well. But that freebie is the best place to start. Okay. Step 1, focus on breastfeeding. Step 2, pump fast and efficiently and learn how to do that best for your body. Number 3, create a predictable milk supply. Understand your milk supply, how it works, what you can and can't get away with to work smarter, not harder. Number 4, have a flexible and realistic plan that works for you as you go back to work. And number 5, get the support you need to make it through the long haul. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the comments for me, but make sure you download that freebie and get some help. All right, lots more videos on the channel to explore. I'll even put one up top for you here to watch next that I think you'll like, but good luck to you and happy pumping.